we did have some good college football over the weekend. I know Jenks is probably thrilled that Texas is quietly reinserting itself back into the college football playoff conversation. Then is this a real possibility? They beat Vanderbilt over the weekend, 34-31.
Not only is it a real possibility, they're in the driver's seat. They can get into the college football playoff, and they don't really need any help. They just have to win. That's a lot easier said than done because they got Georgia coming up on the schedule. They got Texas A&M to close the year. Then they got Arkansas sandwiched between the two of them. So those are three big, really important games. But this entire season with a 12-team playoff in year number 2, I have always felt like they're going to get a 3-loss team in there, and it's going to be out of the SEC. Well, if Texas beats either Georgia or Texas A&M, they have the resume that stacks up to suggest, hey, we deserve to be that first 3-loss team. A win over a top 10 Vanderbilt team, a win already over a top 10 Oklahoma team at the time in the Red River rivalry, and then Georgia's going to be top 10 when they play them, potentially top 4. Texas A&M at current standing is top 3. We'll see what they are on Tuesday when the college football playoff rankings come out. But Texas A&M is top 3 unless they just completely get trampled over the next couple of weeks. They'll be a top 10 team. The door is very open. And it sounds crazy because we've kind of made Texas the meme of college football because Arch Manning was flexing on Sam Houston, and that was kind of really it. But he played well on Saturday. This was the best game I thought he'd played all season. Poised, made big-time throws, and that Texas defense is good. They're very much alive and well.
Well, it's crazy to me is that in college football, as long as you lose early in the season, you're not really punished for it as much, as long as there's not too many losses. Because we've seen this with, people are looking at the rankings and looking at Notre Dame and be like, what's their good wins this year? But they lost earlier in the season. And you could say that about Alabama. Remember when they were going viral for all of these man-on-the-street interviews where ladies were like, I'm going to win the lottery and then pay the buyout so we can fire Kalen DeBoer. How'd that turn out? Now Alabama, is still, one of the top teams in college football. So it's one of those things where I don't know if it's our own fault as members of the media for driving some of these narratives, or if it's just people overreacting just because I still understand that each game is still extremely valuable when you talk about college football. But the stuff with Arch Manning, this is probably more of the realistic trajectory for a young quarterback as opposed to what we put on him and saying, oh, he's the favorite to win the Heisman because of how many games he had played? A few.
3. Yeah.
And right, such a small sample size. And just because of his last name, they're like, well, there's no way this kid can fail. So it's one of those things where it is totally in the realm of possibility that Texas could get better each week. And if they're in the college football playoff and their best games are still ahead of them, it wouldn't be shocking to me, if they make a run. They have the talent.
This is the great part about the 12-team playoff, because in a 4-team playoff, their season's over. They lose to Ohio State, wrap it up. It's done. But you now incentivize teams to get better as the season progresses. And now you have a situation with Texas. If they get in, I don't know that a lot of people want to see them in the college football playoff as far as the opposition, because they're still an incredibly talented roster. Their defense is still incredibly fast, and they fly around the football. I know it was only a 3-point game, but that was a little bit of garbage time stuff with Diego Pavia scoring late into the fourth quarter, so it really wasn't as close as the score makes it out to be. This was a really quality win for Texas, and as you mentioned, if they continue to stack and get better and better and better, God help us all if they beat Georgia. Georgia looked a lot more human this weekend against Florida than I certainly thought they would have. Didn't love the smart play from Gunnar Stockton there as someone that was laying the 7.5. I mean, great football IQ there, King, but Lord have mercy. Can I get one, please, of this weekend? It was a bad weekend for me. But if they get better, if they beat Georgia, the hype that has been just completely desolate for weeks is going to come right back to the forefront. And they're not going to be in the top 12 on Tuesday, but if they beat Georgia, they got a bye week, and then they play Georgia, so it'll be a couple weeks. But if they beat Georgia, they're going to be right back in that top 12, and then Georgia might fall out of the top 12 if they lose to Texas. Fascinating stuff. I love this sport. I mean, this is crack to me. I just inject it into my veins, smack it and let it go. This is how anybody does not love this sport. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, even your team potentially also spoiling your boy, because I have a Georgia Tech playoff ticket. But NC State coming away with a huge win over Georgia Tech. They beat the mess out of the Yellow Jackets this weekend. It was awesome to watch.
Well, this is the frustrating part about being an NC State fan, because once a year it feels like we have a game where we play out of our minds and we beat a team that's like in the top 10. And this is how Dave Doran keeps his job, because people look at this game, they're like, whoa, look at that moment of glory. How can we, fire Doran and like hire Brent Key if we were ever to get him, if we lose, if we beat them head to head? But it's just not a consistent thing, because NC State, you look at this game, you're like, wow, they're a good team. No, they've been getting smoked the past few weeks. So it's one of those things where NC State will have this great win and then they'll come back and like lose to somebody like Boston College. So I am still not buying into NC State as a good program, but that is just me, and I am a cynic about my own program. But back to Texas, like looking at the schedule, like the fact that Georgia game is on the road, that's really tough. Like I'm not looking at that game and be like, oh, Texas is going to win that game. Honestly, I feel like that's going to be a really tough game for them, just because how resilient Georgia is. Like they're a team that feels like they don't flinch in the fourth quarter. Like maybe they don't cover the number. I don't know what the spread is in that game yet, but that's a tough one. I will say at least Texas gets Texas A&M at Texas.
Mm-hmm.
But like this is not an easy end to the schedule. So like if Texas gets in the college football playoff, they will definitely earn it.
Yes. I mean, that Georgia game, you're spot on. The thing that's impressed me the most about them is how many games they've trailed in the fourth quarter and how many times they've won. Because the Florida game is an example of this. The Ole Miss game is an example of this. The Tennessee game is an example of it. So not only are they doing this, but they're doing it against quality competition. Like it'd be one thing if you're playing like the Citadel and you're trailing in the fourth quarter and we're like, whoa, what is happening here? But you're doing this against good quality SEC teams. I mean, they overcame the fired coaching bump with Florida. Now, I don't know. I need to talk to PJ Glasser about this. He's like the master, the PhD in the fired coaching bump. I don't know how it works when you fire a coach and then have a bye. It does feel like the bump maybe comes down a little bit there, but they overcame the fired coaching bump. They took down Florida after they fired Billy Napier. So I think this Georgia team is really, really good. I think Stockton he's a lot better than I thought he was, but they're a team that with Kirby Smart coaching the way that he does, they're never out of games. And that is a terrifying, terrifying reality for a lot of teams in the SEC. So hopefully when Texas does play them, they take what kind of went sideways at the end of the game in the fourth quarter with his Vanderbilt win, and they can maximize on how do we not do that to Georgia or not allow Georgia an opportunity to come back.